my favorite molded compressor written by Vlad Goncharov. I wonder how these two modes differ. In the alpha mode the curves are really classic and smooth. Let's see the sigma mode. You see, the curve looks really different. It lets more transients pass through. The release time also doesn't start immediately. Let's check out the SSL channel. You see the attack and release. In the fast mode, the attack becomes something about 1 millisecond. Hi friends, Ilya here, and I want to share with you today my experience of measuring compressor attack and release time. Recently I've started to learn electronics and I wished really hard to make my own analog compressor, controlled via microcontroller. And while working on this project, I was very interested in how to see what my compressor is doing. Is it really doing well? The first thing that came into mind was just to take a sinusoidal signal, low level signal, then high level signal, and pass it through the compressor and to see the curves in DAW. And approximately we can measure, knowing the frequency, we can measure the length, approximate length of the attack time, knowing the frequency and knowing the period. At some point I had a wish to see what will change if I change the element in my scheme. For example, if I change one photoresistor to another, or if I change LED one to another in my opto compressor. So I wanted to see how much the attack has changed. I wanted to see the numbers. So having this need, I started to search for a solution. VST Plugin Analyzer is a well-known piece of software. It was written quite a long time ago. It is 32-bit only. It supports only 32-bit plugins. I don't know if a 64-bit version will be out. It works quite well. It has good features. It can measure harmonic response, frequency response, and it also has dynamics. You can see the attack curve, you can see the threshold ratio curve, but still it doesn't show any numbers. You have to visually calculate it. It's not really convenient. It has also the plugin that lets you use hardware through your audio interface. It works, but it works a little strange. It didn't work out for me. Another plugin I wanted to show you is this plugin Doctor, which is a new plugin. I was really excited when it showed up. It has also the frequency response, the harmonic analysis, and most importantly, it has the dynamics section. It also can show the threshold ratio curve and the attack curve. It is 64-bit, but it's a little buggy, and it also doesn't show you any numbers. I wrote to the developers and asked them whether they could add the option to show the attack and release time, but I sadly got no answer. Plugin Doctor also has an option to use hardware, but it doesn't have too many options, and the measuring of the hardware is much slower than measuring the software plugin. You can't set the bottom and top values, and it measures the threshold ratio very slowly, and you can't change or adjust it. I didn't need the whole range. For example, I wanted to measure a short range of values and I couldn't do that. Reaper has some tools to measure a compressor. They are cool, but not what I wanted. They show different information. It was not what I was looking for. So as I found no available software that could solve my problem to show the attack and release time, I decided to make my own plugin based on a plugin script released by Blue Cat Audio. I haven't written any plugins before, so based on this plugin script, I managed to write a plugin to measure attack and release time that I wanted to show you and to share it with you. Maybe you'll like it and use it as well. So there are several plugins. One is generating the test tone. This test tone passes through the compressor, and after compressor it goes into this plugin. Here the signal is analyzed. Let's try to turn some knobs. For example, let's make the attack 25 milliseconds. 25 looks good. Let's make 10. 9.9. Well, release 100. 102. That's okay. 150. Okay, that's really good. Let's add the track and insert a plugin for generating the test tone. This plugin has a few modes. The simple mode, when it generates the sinusoidal signal of the desired amplitude and frequency. The mode for attack release, it generates low and high level signals. And for threshold ratio measurement, this is for the next video. For now, let's stick to attack and release mode, and let's insert the plugin for measuring attack and release. The signal is muted because this plugin has a button for muting the signal easily. You can see the levels, the amplitudes. You can set the low and high level amplitudes and the duration of these signals. If you right click, you can set the knobs to default value. High frequency signals don't look really good in digital domain, far from sinusoidal. To measure it right, you have or rather use internal upsampling in the plugin, or use the frequencies and the wavelength that give you beautiful pictures that have the peak value. So the wavelength of 20, 60, 12, 8 and 4 samples give the best resolution that you can see in the plugin. The resolution is also affected by the sample rate. If you set the sample rate to 96 kHz, the resolution will be really high and you will be able to measure attack times up to 0.1 milliseconds. If you click right here, you can change this knob into another mode where you can set any frequency. With shift you can set it really precisely. If you really need, for example, 10 kHz frequency, you can set it here, but it is a little bit more convenient to use the presets and switch quickly between the preset frequencies. So friends, we have set the frequency. Let's see some compressor in action. Everyone knows LA to A, but what's the attack time? Let's measure it in 2 kHz approximately. So you see the attack has started here, and here the plugin thinks the attack has fully finished. The level has been static for a long time and the plugin thinks the attack has ended. You can see the peak of the attack because of the limitations of the plugin script interface. It can't refresh too quickly, but with help of the white line you can see the real peak of the attack, and the blue line shows the approximate curve of the signal. The same with the release. Here the release has started, here the level was static for a long time and plugin thinks the release has fully ended here. If you set the time not enough for the release to fully end, you'll see the white line doesn't come back to the static value, so increase the low level time so that your release fully ends. So this time is more than enough for that. The same with the attack. Set this high level time enough for the white line to come back to static value. We also see the red and green lines. The red line is the level where attack time is measured, and the green line where the release time is measured. You can find different opinions about how to measure attack and release time. Sadly, different manufacturers use different methods for that. I really liked the advice from Gregory Scott, the developer who wrote a lot of good plugins. He says that attack time is the length of time it takes a compressor to apply roughly 2/3 of the targeted amount of gain reduction. And when I started my own measurements, I found out this is basically true in most cases. When a signal suddenly jumps up, the plugin thinks this is the attack start. It determines the maximum level of the signal. When the signal goes down and becomes static, you can calculate the gain reduction between two levels. This time gain reduction was 6.7 decibels. 63% is somewhere about here. When the signal goes down here, reaches this point, you can calculate the attack time. The same thing with the release. When the signal reaches 63% of gain restoration, about 2/3 of full gain restoration, this is the release time. Different manufacturers, as you can find out, measure these times differently. Let's check out another compressor, for example, good old R-Comp from Waves. It says the attack is 19 milliseconds, release is 88. Let's try to match these values. 16. Let's try 32. Well, almost 32. So this way you can adjust the plugin so that plugin shows the values just like in your favorite compressor. The default value 63% is pretty much balanced and universal. It reminds me somehow of electronics, the RC chain and the capacitor that charges to the full value, very similarly to the release curve. And when the capacitor charges about 63%, this is the times that is used for calculations. The possibility to measure any attack and release of almost any compressor, it's really a great thing, but another wish was to see the real attack and release curves. In plugin script you can't refresh the display really fast, so the idea was to save these curves, these images in SVG format so that you can open them in your browser. SVG is vector format, so you can edit this image in any editor. Let's save the snapshot and let's see what we get. We save the snapshot, and in the plugin folder, in snapshot AR folder, you get a few files, the HTML file and attack release data folder. In there you can find a few SVG files. The attack release SVG is the main snapshot. As a vector image it can be scaled really easily in your browser. It looks really nice, but sometimes you wish you could disable some of the text here, and the next step was to create an HTML viewer that opens SVG files as layers and can disable them if you don't need to see, for example, the attack and release time, etc. You can enter the snapshot name here, and the snapshot name stays there even if you refresh the page. It stays there till you close the browser. Let's change the attack time, save the snapshot and open it once again in your browser. Enter another name, and now we have two different tabs in your browser. You can view two snapshots. You can zoom in. You can do it with mouse or with keyboard, so it really is smooth and looks good. You can zoom horizontally only. This way you can zoom in the attack and view it more closely. Disable the layers you don't need. So this is really neat. As it looks really good, I wish I could refresh these snapshots automatically. You can click here to enable the leave mode and enable the leave mode in the plugin itself. And when you click the save button, you get all the snapshots saved automatically. When the new attack comes in and you see in your browser, it refreshes the layers automatically. Now I change the attack time on my compressor with the knob on my MIDI device, and you can see it in real time. The same with the release. I can change the release and see how it changes in almost real time. I think this is really cool. You can make it full screen. Let's see how linear mode differs from the normal mode. Oh, okay. You see the curves now look this way. Let's see another compressor. My favorite molded compressor written by Drwho. I really respect him. I wonder how these two modes differ, the alpha and sigma modes. Let's add some attack time. In the alpha mode, the curves are really classic and smooth. Let's add some gain reduction. Okay. The only problem is the attack time really is not what is written here. You see, it differs a lot. Let's set the release time to 400, and what our plugin shows, it's almost 10 times lower. Well, let's see the sigma mode. You see, the curve looks really different. It lets more transients pass through such a dip here. The release time also doesn't start immediately. So it's better to see one time than to read it a few times in the manual. Let's check out the SSL channel. You see the attack and release in the slow mode. In the fast mode, the attack becomes something about 1 millisecond. The Sheps Omni channel, it has a few different compressors inside. The FET compressor, the VCA compressor, and the Opto compressor. This is the longest attack time. Let's make it a little shorter and see. The attack time is really fast. I don't know if a real Opto compressor can handle such short attacks. One of my favorite bus compressors, the Bombardier compressor. Let's check out two modes, the oversample and no oversample mode. Let's enable the oversampling and see how it looks. Wow, looks really different from no oversampling mode. I was wondering, why does it sound so different? Really, it has different behavior. Let's check out not a compressor but a vocal rider plugin from Waves. You see, the attack is almost instantaneous. The release time is slow and linear. Okay, let's see what it does in the fast mode. Release happens faster but looks almost the same. Now we know how it works in the inside. Let's check out another compressor, the famous LA2A from T-Rex. Let's add some reduction. You see, nice curves, okay. Well, the release is in two steps. The first 60% is really quick release, and then the release gets slower, just like in the hardware specifications. Let's check out the waves. I don't remember I saw the same behavior there. That's right, waves behaves differently. This way you can easily compare the two compressors to see what's the difference. Now we can imagine these compressors sound differently also because of this difference in their curves. Let's go even further. On such value of gain reduction, the attack curve starts to look really weird. Let's go further. It looks really strange. When you go up to 100, it looks this way, but if you go 95, It looks really strange, not like the regular attack curve. Why is that? Is it the original LA to A curve, or is it something that only this plugin does? I can't say. Let me quickly explain to you some more options. The peak level of the signal is really affected by the attack of the compressor. If the attack is really fast, the peak level goes down and the gain reduction measured in the plugin is not too accurate. You can also measure gain restoration. That is what this plugin does. After measuring, it selects which one is bigger, the gain reduction from the attack phase or gain restoration from the release phase, and you can set it to the max, the default value, and usually it works okay. But if you wish to measure only the attack gain reduction and to use this value, you can use this method. Disable the plugin and lock the maximum value here, then enable the plugin, and all the future calculations will be from this maximum level to the static end level of the attack. You can select to use only gain reduction of the attack. In reality, these options are not often used. Don't forget to disable these if you don't need them. Another thing is the snapshot saving modes. The normal mode is when you just save one snapshot. The leave mode is when snapshots are saved automatically after each attack, after each new attack. If you enable the leave mode in the HTML viewer, you can also see it refreshing. You can see the time the snapshot is saved. Another mode is with CSV mode. It saves this curve as numbers in CSV file, and it can be opened in Excel or LibreOffice application similar to that. Comma separated values, you can see them as a table. This is the attack start. This is where it is measured. The resolution is 1 millisecond, just like in the snapshot. If you need a better resolution, for example, you're measuring and viewing really fast attacks, the resolution is 1 millisecond and the attack is about 1 millisecond. You can zoom in, but this is not too precise. For such fast attacks, you can enable saving the high resolution attack and high resolution release snapshots. When you enable these, the CPU is higher, so don't enable them if you don't need them. But when you save the snapshot with these options on, you can see new layers, and enabling them you can see the attack, the first 10-15 milliseconds of the attack, and you can see here that this plugin seems to have a look ahead feature, so it starts reduction even before the peak is really met. This is the release curve. You can also enable these options if you need a high resolution data in CSV to be saved. Let's save the snapshot, and we see the new file here with much higher resolution. This is now 1 millisecond. These are the values where the attack started, where it is measured and ended. You can use these values to further analyze your compressor behavior, or to copy them and paste to some regression tool to get the formula for your own compressor. For example, if you want to repeat a curve, you can try to use, for example, this polynomial regression, calculate it and see the formula that can help you to make your own compressor with the same curve, for example. Another option is saving a reference. Let's compare, for example, two 76 compressors. It says the signal is too high. Let's reduce the output so the signal is somewhere in the center of the graph, and let's save this as reference. You see the reference as red and the original as blue. This way you can easily compare two compressors. For example, if you want to match one compressor to another to see how they differ, you better also compare the threshold and ratio first, but that's a topic for another video. Another thing that can be useful is keeping these snapshots for future use. There are two options. If you want to keep it for yourself or send to a friend, you can just copy the folder, give it a new name. When you open the HTML file, you'll see that the name in the snapshot reflects the name of the folder. But you can also edit the HTML file itself and enter the snapshot name here. For example, if you wish to use some symbols that are not allowed in the folder name, you can do it this way. If you want to post the image online, you can just edit the main SVG file. You can also find the snapshot name there. There's also a possibility that you maybe don't need all this text on this image. You can easily remove it in the editor. Just delete what you don't need, save it, and see this clean image that you can now post online or use for any other purpose. I hope you really like this plugin and what it does. I hope you find it useful. My wife convinced me to make it totally free, so I decided to follow her advice. Want to add that any usage is free of charge, including commercial. But if you feel grateful, we'll be glad if you support some charity project or if you send any donation to our PayPal wallet. That's all for now. Peace and love. Till next time. Bye bye.